it almost seems impossible that the Tennessee Titans were the number one seed last year in the AFC. You look at their team as a whole, you look at a team who lost to the New York Jets, lost to the Houston Texans, and lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers throughout the season. Two teams in the Houston Texans and the New York Jets who were in the bottom four of the overall standings in the NFL, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were by far the worst team to make the playoffs last year. They only played 8 games with Derrick Henry. They had the following rankings as a team last year: 15th in points, 17th in yards, 12th in yards allowed, 14th in takeaways, 23rd in turnovers, 24th in passing yards, 25th in passing yards allowed, 19th in touchdowns. Like, this wasn't a statistically good team. They ran the ball well and defended the run well. But in today's NFL, what Tennessee did to win last year is something that almost no team in the NFL does to win anymore, and that's just control the ground game and get by with a below average quarterback. And look, at this point in Ryan Tannehill's career, this is going to be his age 34 season. He already had a below average year last year with 21 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. His longest pass of the year was 57 yards. That's almost an average pass for Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or somebody else on a week-by-week basis. Like, he got sacked 47 times last year. It's not a team you look at and you say, yeah, that team won 12 games and was the number one seed in a conference that featured teams like the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, many other teams in that conference that are very, very good. And it ends up being the Tennessee Titans who get that number one seed. Now, they did have the very easy schedule of the AFC South. They played 3 teams in the Colts, Texans, and Jaguars who either A, had below average quarterbacks themselves, or were starting rookie quarterbacks like the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then in the Indianapolis Colts case, they were going against Carson Wentz twice a year, which it's probably more of a pro than it is a con. Look, when you look at what this team is going to look like this year from not just a roster standpoint, but just what everything else looks like around the league, it's very not only easy to say, but very reasonable to say that the Tennessee Titans are going to be the worst to first, or actually not worst to first to worst candidate of the year. You look at what they've done in the offseason. They obviously traded A.J. Brown and replaced him with Treylon Burks. Their wide receiver core, although it is decent, although it does have decent names, your star players in the skill group are going to be Robert Woods, who's coming off a torn ACL, Treylon Burks, who's a rookie first-round receiver who's replacing A.J. Brown, Cody Hollister, Nick Westbrook, Dez Fitzpatrick, Kyle Phillips, Reggie Robertson, Racey McMath. I don't think it's a receiver core that's you're looking at as a great one. The tight ends aren't much better. Austin Hooper is coming off a really down year in Cleveland, even though I think he was utilized wrong in that system. Jeff Swaim, who is primarily a blocking tight end, in my opinion. I could be completely wrong about that, but if I'm wrong about Jeff Swaim, I'm not really upset about that because it's Jeff Swaim. Either way, he's not catching 60-plus passes for 5 touchdowns and 800 yards. Either way, that shit ain't happening. The offensive line, while it is good, it's not what you want from a number one seed and a contender in the AFC. The defensive line is very good. Danico Autry, Jeffrey Simmons. The pass rush in general is very good. Between Autry, Simmons, Bud Dupree, and Harold Landry, they all had really good years last year. Bud Dupree was really limited in his sack totals, but I'm sure the hope is that he's going to turn that around this year. The secondary, you like it. You like Kevin Byard. You like Caleb Farley. You like Christian Fulton. You hope Christian Fulton can prove he was worthy of a first-round pick. You like guys like Amani Hooker. You like guys like Adrian Colbert and Lonnie Johnson. I like Lonnie Johnson. He was a Texan. But You don't look at the team and you don't say this is the number one seed. Not only do you not say that this year, you really don't even look to say it last year. And I think that's why Mike Vrabel was such a big candidate for Coach of the Year last year. And if I'm not mistaken, he won it last year, correct? You kind of have to look at it and you kind of have to say, okay, this team, outside of Derrick Henry, this team isn't good. Not only are they not good, there's a chance they have a chance of, like I already said, of becoming one of those candidates to go from first to worst. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go from being the number one seed in the conference to being the very last seed in the conference, because I don't think they're going to be the 15th best team in the conference. But I think there's a really good chance this team doesn't even make the playoffs. You look at teams that not only are better than they were last year that were playoff teams, but teams who were not playoff teams who were going to be much better. The Denver Broncos at 7-10 are easily going to be much better with Russell Wilson in the fold. Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert in year 3, and this being the year that they kind of need to be pushing for the playoffs, is going to be a much better team than they were last year. The Dolphins with Tyreek Hill on the roster now are going to be a much better team. The Colts with Matt Ryan are going to be a better team. The Houston Texans with much more experience with all of their guys who were starters last year that were rookies. They're going to be a better team. The Jaguars, just from addition by subtraction of Urban Meyer, they're going to be a better team. Even though I hate Doug Peterson and I don't understand why everybody just all of a sudden loves the guy who subbed in Nate Sudfeld because they needed to get a look at him over Jalen Hurts. But that point is neither here nor there because I think the team's going to be better anyway, even though I hate Doug Peterson. So you look at it for the Titans and you're like, okay, can this team even win double digits this year? Honestly, no, they can't. You look at what this team is going to face on a week-by-week schedule. They obviously have the 6 games against the divisional opponents. They also have an early bye week, which, if you ask me, I hate when a team... I guess I shouldn't say I hate when a team because it's not really their choice. But I would hate if I were a football team. I would hate to have my bye week either week 6 and earlier or like week 15/14 and later. I would much rather have it in the middle of the season and kind of try to split it into 2 halves. Because now you're going to be asking this Tennessee Titans team to have a really easy first 5 games of the schedule where they go to Washington, go to Indianapolis, host Las Vegas, go to Buffalo, and host New York. I say easy because even though they do go to Buffalo and they do go to Indianapolis, you host Las Vegas, you host New York, you should hope if you think you're that good of a team, you should hope that you could win those games, especially given the fact that they're at home. But if they lose those games, it becomes even worse because the second half of their schedule, they host Indianapolis, go to Houston, go to Kansas City, host Denver, go to Green Bay, host Cincinnati, go to Philly, host Jacksonville, go to LA for the Chargers. Like, the season could turn so quickly on this Tennessee Titans team where they could either start something like 3-2 or 2-3 in those first 5 games and easily be looking at a schedule by week 12 where they're 5-6 or 4-7. And it really wouldn't be through too much fault of their own because, like I said, they have 2 incredibly tough away games, going to Green Bay and going to Kansas City, and then hosting Denver in a 3-game stretch, and then hosting Cincinnati after the Green Bay game, and then going to Philadelphia, and then going to the Chargers 2 weeks later. Like, this is going to be a team where if they can repeat what they did last year, Mike Vrabel should be in the running again for Coach of the Year. Because, look, there's nothing about this Tennessee Titans team that just screams out at you that they're going to be even as good as they were last year, let alone better than the team that they were last year. A lot of their guys are out of their prime. Ryan Tannehill, I would not be surprised if he is replaced by Malik Willis at least some point during this year. And that is part of the conversation here is if Malik Willis does play for this team, it's probably not going to be a good team. Look, we all love Malik Willis. We think he's been doing great in the preseason. We think he did great at Liberty University. We think he did great at the Combine. We think he did great. We all think he did great. and we all think he's doing great. We all want him to be great. But you can't be great your rookie year. You just can't. And for a guy like Malik Willis, who, look, it doesn't matter what kind of play style you have at either the quarterback position, running back, offensive line, it doesn't matter how you play. You have to figure out how other guys are going to attack you throughout an 18-week schedule. And that's never been harder for rookies than it is now. You know? So for Malik Willis, you know, if he gets the start, we all need to understand that he's going to struggle heavily. A lot. Especially those games that I highlighted earlier, where it's away games at Kansas City, or Green Bay, or Philly, or at the Chargers. If he starts those games, those are really tough games to not only win, but to just compete in, and to be competitive and keep the game close. Those are tough games to just do that in. So don't be surprised, not only if Malik Willis starts, but struggles heavily in those games. And that's part of my conversation about why Tennessee is going to be from first to worst. Because they have a tough schedule. They have the outlook of possibly starting a rookie, which never is just like your best prospect. But I am excited for the Tennessee Titans because this will be another full year of Derrick Henry, hopefully. Hopefully, we do see Malik Willis at some point. He has shown out in the preseason. Hopefully, their guys on the defense can step up and get back to those dollar sign amounts that they are attributed, a la Bud Dupree getting $20 million this year. Jeffrey Simmons looks like he's developing into the next great interior defensive lineman. And he does more than just the interior. He can rush the passer. He can get after the run. He can do a lot of things. Jeffrey Simmons is becoming a really good defensive lineman. It's just not all together for Tennessee, and those holes are going to make themselves very, very prominent when we see them have those really tough games in the middle of their schedule.